Hi guys, this is Klazart, P1of4 audio commentary, and this time I'm commentating on Game 3 of the Pro League matchup between SK Telecom Team 1 and STX Seoul, played on the 15th of June 2009, and this is going to be played on Outsider, and this is going to be the feature attraction of this matchup. It is going to be Bisu, a very focused and almost annoyed looking Bisu. Well, it's not really more annoyance, it's not even concentration, it's just almost a kind of subdued anger. Just a kind of anger on Bisu's face, and I don't know why. I'm not sure why he's in this sort of mood, going up against Hwaisin. Now, we talk about StarCraft rivalries, we've talked about them a lot in the past. The score is 1-1, so everything up for grabs in this matchup between SK Telecom Team 1 and STX Seoul. We've got Hwaisin for Seoul in red, up at the 1 o'clock position, and we've got Bisu at the 5 o'clock position. Now, from Bisu's point of view, this is probably a reasonably tough contest, but one that he expects to win. You know what, actually, I've put my finger on it. Bisu looks tired. That's what. He looks like he's a little bit tired. He's been playing a lot of Pro League matches for SKT1 lately. He's really been carrying their team, winning ace matches and all the rest, and he is actually the captain of my fantasy team. And for those of you guys doubting my Savior allegiance, I do have Savior in my team as well, but he doesn't seem to be playing a lot of Pro League matchups, and that is why I didn't make him the captain of my team, of my fantasy team. Excuse me. And also, I gotta apologize to you guys for my mic. This is a mic that I borrowed from my brother, who's currently playing Dota as I record these commentaries, which is why I probably won't be able to upload them and get them to you guys till maybe tonight or tomorrow. But anyway, yeah, as far as rivalries go, I'm sure Bisu remembers his matchup against Hwaisin, but he just sees it as another matchup against a decent player, one that he expects himself to beat on a regular basis. Whereas for Hwaisin, I feel that Hwaisin, when he played at his best opportunity for advancing far in the Star League finals, and in doing well, came up against Bisu, where he came so close to overcoming the Protoss Star and fell just at the last hurdle, at the very edge, at the very edge of victory. He lost, unfortunately for him, and he, to his mind, this is probably his biggest rival and the player he most wants to beat. And I think while most StarCraft fans wouldn't really consider, and I think it is the same girl who was eating the ice cream cone earlier. I'm not sure what flavor she is. She looks like a strawberry to me, but and I quite like strawberries actually. Although chocolate obviously is my favorite. I don't like strawberry ice cream. I like strawberries, the fruit. In case you guys get the wrong idea. Anyway, before I dig myself any deeper into this Protoss torture pit, we've got a cybernetic score going down for Bisu. Surprisingly, again, this is the second time I've seen him do this recently, not sending his first pylon probe out to scout, and it's very surprising to see Bisu do that. I wonder if this is a new confident sort of Bisu, if it's a different kind of Bisu. Maybe he's decided that in order to get the best out of the macro, he wants to keep that probe in his base just that little bit longer. Now he's sending out the probe to scout, presumably after putting down another pylon. Meanwhile, it looks like Hwaisin and Bisu both scouting in the right direction, and Hwaisin's going to get that SCV into Bisu's base. It looks like this is not something that Bisu was counting on, because he's tried to follow that SCV around and try and block it, and the Zealot comes out, but unfortunately not able to get onto the wrap in time. So Hwaisin is going to scout it, and unfortunately for Bisu, is going to have to take that first Dragoon to actually get that SCV out. Meanwhile, Hwaisin's got his rack stars building his factory as well, and it'll be interesting if he can get a couple of Marines out onto his ramp to block Bisu's probe from getting up there and stopping his scout. But yeah, when we talk about StarCraft rivalries, I don't think Hwaisin versus Bisu is one that really comes to mind, even though they've had an epic series in the past. But I think to Hwaisin, and Hwaisin fans, this is a huge matchup. They would really like to see Hwaisin get one up on the Protoss player, on the Protoss Dragon, and that would be something they would really like to see. Bisu now sending his Zealot out to do a little bit more harass, having managed to get his probe inside Hwaisin's base. Keen fan there. I wonder who she's supporting, but she's watching this game intently, as I'm sure are most of you guys out there. Bisu with his Zealot coming up, Hwaisin with good building placement, just putting those Marines in that little protective semicircle, and his factory's finished. Now straight away starting up the machine shop, got another Marine coming out, so he's got 4 Marines there. Bisu managed to get the Zealot up the ramp. He's going to run away, going to be pushed out straight away by those Marines, and Bisu's not going to have any further scout in Hwaisin's base. I think Hwaisin's still got that SCV somewhere circling around Bisu's base, although I don't see it. Maybe he did pull it out. Robotics facility now going down for Bisu, and it'll be interesting to see if Hwaisin scouts this or not. Hwaisin is one of those players who I feel has a lot of potential, and I think deserves a lot of respect. He's a very solid Terran player, and on his day, I feel he can beat anybody. He can beat Savior, he can beat Bisu, he can beat Jaedong. But unfortunately for him, he just isn't able to pull it. Perhaps it's a run of luck where he's not had scouts or run into build orders. but he just hasn't been able to get that consistent high win rate and produce at his very best consistently enough to be able to beat them. He's more one of those kind of enigmatic players. He's more like a Fernando Verdasco to me a little bit, who kind of can beat any player on his day, but struggles to consistently beat the top pros, and that is why. And you know what's the difference between players like Bisu and Savior and Jaedong and say a player like Hwaisin? And the difference is that while Bisu and Jaedong and Savior can be beaten by players playing at their best, they tend to put away the weaker players. They tend to not get upset as often as some of the other players. Hwaisin, for example, is more likely to lose to a player that he is expected to beat than Bisu, but perhaps that's just because our expectations are so much higher of the top players. But actually that doesn't make sense. When your expectations are higher, you would expect them to lose more often. It looks like Bisu now starting up his expansion just at the 6 o'clock base. Hwaisin sending another SCV out down to scout. Bisu has got a line of 4 Dragoons and a Zealot, just blocking that to prevent Hwaisin from getting that info. Now got his observatory up as well. Hwaisin meanwhile content in defending his base. He's got his expo building as well. His expo almost complete. So Hwaisin, it looks to me like perhaps a slight build order advantage. He's going to have his command center out earlier, so 2 base Terran versus 2 base Protoss, probably an advantage to the Terran, especially if the Terran base goes up before the Protoss base. Bisu now with the Dragoon, and Bisu's going to have to. Bisu hasn't really gone for that harass either. He didn't go for the robotic support, but he went for the observatory first. So it's not like he's going to be able to do any harass. So he's going to count on just beating Hwaisin toe for toe, taking him on punch for punch in a normal matchup, macro and micro. And it'll be interesting to see which of these 2 players comes out on top. Hwaisin now just floating that command center over, also floating his engineering bay over. He's got enough forces on the ground, now putting a turret down as well at his natural expo. He's got enough forces on the ground to be able to defend comfortably. Interesting enough, Bisu choosing to take that expansion. Outsider is a map that seems to me to be fairly balanced. It seems to be a map where the statistics are roughly 50-50 in Protoss versus Terran and Terran versus Zerg. I believe Protoss versus Zerg and Terran versus Zerg. I believe Protoss versus Terran and that Observer just getting taken out of Bisu's great placement of those turrets by Hwaisin. Yeah, interesting enough, Protoss versus Terran, I think it is 11-7, but it's a very slight imbalance. I think 17 games with such a small difference of only 4 games isn't really enough to tell anything. You could have just had players like Stork and Bisu decimating their Terran opponents from that. I'm just going to actually take a second to double check those stats while I'm actually commenting on this. And yeah, Protoss versus Terran 11-7, and I would say those 4 victories difference is probably down to players like Bisu and Stork decimating their opponents, and really Terran opponents would have a tough time against. And Bisu now coming in with a second observer into Hwaisin's base, and both players taking a slightly standoffish approach. Neither player trying to apply pressure early on. Both players content to macro up and sit in their bases. Hwaisin obviously expecting some kind of harass from Bisu, considering that he went in and saw that Bisu had gone for the tech build. Bisu had put his core down. He hadn't really expanded. He hadn't gone for a fast expansion. He had put the robotics facility down. So Hwaisin obviously expecting some kind of harass, but Bisu obviously realizing that Hwaisin had scouted it. It seemed to me that once Hwaisin scouted Bisu's build, his strategy changed and he went for the observatory first rather than pushing on with the shuttle. I feel if he'd avoided that scout, he would have probably gone for the shuttle first. Now Bisu has got that shuttle out. He's building another expansion. He's taking at his natural expo now, while he's already taken an expansion to the 6th position. Hwaisin looks like he's ready to push out a little bit and put a little bit of pressure on Bisu. He's content that the push isn't coming from Bisu, the harass isn't coming, and he's now amassed enough forces to be able to put a little bit of pressure on Bisu. Bisu is seeing this obviously with that observer, and Hwaisin, brilliant scan with the observer, pushing his forces out, seeing that observer was there, taking it down with the Marines. Great play by Hwaisin, and now pushing out, and Bisu doesn't have the advantage of the observer to give him line of sight, and Hwaisin with nearly as much siege tanks as Bisu has got Dragoons, and Bisu's really going to have to micro well here. Bisu doing a good job of holding Hwaisin off. Hwaisin forced to go into siege mode, and that's really what Bisu wanted. He wanted to force Hwaisin into siege, and now Hwaisin's also got that engineering bay out to spot for him. Bisu meanwhile, Citadel of Adon is up, Templar Archives going up, but he really doesn't have a lot to defend, and Hwaisin could really push up right up to that choke off Bisu's now got the shuttle for the shuttle bombs, and that's why Hwaisin's got it. Hwaisin's got a medic out as well. Interesting enough, he did put that academy down, but I thought that was mainly for the comsats. But he's got a group of medic and Marines along with the vultures, so interesting mix of forces from Hwaisin. Bisu doing a good job of forcing Hwaisin to siege up just to buy himself that little bit of time he needs, but Bisu doesn't really have a lot of zealots out to be able to break those siege tanks either. Hwaisin, though, doesn't have a lot of vultures either, but he's continued to push forward with those vultures, and interesting enough, as a Terran player, he seems to have gone for siege mode first before getting the spider mines out for the Vultures, and again, probably because he realized that he needed to defend early on, and that's why he was happy enough going for the siege mode, and now that's going to give him an advantage setting up this push, because he still doesn't seem to have spider mines out. I've yet to see him put a spider mine. Now putting down a bunker, and he's right up at the choke to Bisu's natural expo, and Bisu under heavy pressure here. He really needs to do something. Bisu is in potentially in trouble here, potentially giving a decisive advantage to Hwaisin this early on in the game, and Bisu is not mining at all at that expo. Looks like he's given up that expo. Hwaisin looks like he is going to take a massive advantage in that game. It looks like he's going to take that natural expo down. Bisu in a lot of trouble here, and I'm not sure what he can do. He does have that other expo, so he's not going to have his economy completely destroyed. He has been able to move his probes away. Now Bisu coming around with the shuttle, trying to find an opportunity to drop, trying to distract Hwaisin a little bit. Those 3 tanks at Hwaisin's rear are vulnerable, but he's unsieged them and is going to move them forward, and Bisu under a lot of pressure. He's now got a DT out, he's got those Zealots out, and that's what he really needs. He needs Zealot speed upgrade before he can really break through. Hwaisin with the scan, meanwhile, has seen Bisu's main force, and it'll be interesting to see whether or not Hwaisin decides to push forward. Bisu not coming in with the Zealots, he's finally got that speed upgrade. DT coming in as well. Unfortunately, he's got to force his way down that ramp. Looks like most of the Zealots have gotten taken out, but the DT has made it to the rear siege tank, and the Zealots in play as well, and he's going to be able to break Hwaisin's contain. Bisu breaks the contain. Great play by Bisu. He bided his time. He was forced, unfortunately, to sacrifice that expansion.